And welcome back to the New Music Alliance Radio Hour. I'm Ace Housethor, joined this week by David Sokol, Mark Sherry, and our special guest, Danny Bernini from SpiritHouse Recording over in Northampton, Massachusetts. You just heard So Far Away by LuxDeluxe. Before that, 87 Highland Avenue by The Glad Machine, and starting things off, The Things That You Could Be by Yes Darlin'. That is a fun little set.
Yeah. So Danny, you've got a connection, a familial connection. I mean, to the LuxDeluxe tune there, don't you?
That's correct. Yeah, LuxDeluxe is my son's band and my two nephews, and then a couple of their friends that they met at PVPA. So those guys, family, and they've been rehearsing in my basement since they were little kids. And so, they've, a lot of people say that they have some NRBQ influences, and I would say that's probably from me constantly playing NRBQ records around the house. My son Gabe, who also plays a little bit of drums, I think the only way that he knows how to play is like Tommy Artolino. Yeah, exactly. My favorite drummer of all time. Yeah, so we've recorded, probably 1,000 hours of those guys over the last 20 years, or more than 20 years now.
Wow.
And it's a blast to watch them grow and see them. They used to, when I was playing in the band SpiritHouse back, way back, LuxDeluxe would open up for us sometimes when they were like, 10 years old or maybe a little older. And it was pretty fun to watch them play all they's like classic rock songs. They'd play NRBQ when they were like 14. So
wow.
And they did it with such respect. That's one thing I loved about seeing LuxDeluxe was how much respect they showed toward those Q songs. And and I loved that So Far Away. I think the year it came out, maybe 2014. It was the song of the year,
right?
Number one song on WRSI on their year end top 93. So
you can see why.
Wonderful.
It's so catchy. It's just so full of hooks and.
It really is so catchy.
Retro, but so modern. It's great.
And speaking of catchy, that Glad Machine song, 87 Highland Avenue.
Yeah.
That song, I just think that's a great song. It just builds and builds, and the harmonies are superb.
Yeah. Yeah, those guys are all about the hooks. It's the whole record is like that. It's just loaded with hooks, super catchy tunes. And that record did really well in a lot of like pop circles and things. And it's pretty cool. And they're, great guys from the area. We had a blast making that record. They were doing sessions at the studio like every Monday night. That was our session with those guys for like a year. And it was pretty great.
Dan, you got such a great sound on that record too. It's big, it feels, I mean, the whole album, the whole Glad Machine album, it feels like, it's got a little Boston, a little Cars, a little Cheap Trick, but it's so, the sound that they, that they have on that record, probably muchly thanks to you, is just so big. And there's something really, did you approach the studio work on the Glad Machine record any differently from other records just because of the nature of what they were doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, there's records where the whole idea is to make it like a chill 70s, not hyped up kind of record. And the Glad Machine is the opposite of that, where you want everything really jumping out of the speakers and super present. And so we were going for like really big drum sounds and, packed, stacked vocals and all that kind of stuff, which I love doing. It's a blast doing those kind of records. I've done a lot of records like that with other bands, from outside of the area. Like I've made like 11 records with the band Striper over the last 25, 30 years. Wow. And that's the same kind of thing, like really huge drums and, making everything as big and loud as you can make it. And those records are a blast to make.
Yeah, and it just sounds so great. And when I've heard like Glad Machine songs on the radio, they sound particularly. They just really stick out. It's just there's something really magical about that album.
That's awesome. Well, and they're also a really great band, and Brad is a really great singer, and he's really good at putting together harmonies. And everything's really fun to watch that.
So whose address was 87 Highland Avenue?
I don't know the story. It's not the studio, though.
and so before those tunes, we heard I would say, and it could have been an old vaudeville show coming from Yes, Darling.
Yeah.
The way they sing those songs and present them, the things that you could be. It's just so funny, playful, great music.
I'm sure the recording session for that must have been an absolute
Yeah.
laugh riot. Like, wow.
Yeah. One of my favorite records that we've done in a long time, honestly. When we tracked the record, when we tracked the basic tracks, it was very live. So we did vocals and Ryan's guitar, the bass, drums, and piano, all completely live. And all of the vocals are the keeper vocals from the basic tracks. And we were recording to tape. So when we were doing it, if they messed up a vocal, we were redoing everybody, not just punching in a vocal. We were redoing the whole band. So it's kind of old school in that way. And we recorded it to multi-track tape with, a lot of old ribbon microphones and tube microphones and all that kind of stuff, and through our analog board. And we were going for an older sound like that. And then, then we brought in a real string section and real horn section, and it was just a real joy. And those songs are so witty. The whole record is just so witty. Their writing is awesome. And Ryan, he's just a joy to work with. It was really fun.
Yeah, for our listeners who don't know, it's Ryan Montbleu and Haley James.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought I heard that tape warble on there just a little bit. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you something, Danny. What do you feel are the things that you particularly do best at the in your recording process?
I would say first and foremost is I spent a lot of attention on getting the right people in the room together, which is huge. If you for instance, recorded a singer with a string section for a day, you're going to get a completely different record than if you put them in a room with a horn section for the day. So, a lot of thought goes into putting people that are going to have the right energy together. So that's number one. And then maybe number two is that I'm basically always trying to help the artist make the best record that they can make. And I try my best to really take all the technical stuff out of the process so that they're not even thinking about it. A lot of times when I tell people afterwards what I was doing the things there, they didn't even know that I was doing that. And that's the way that I like it to be. I like to have the artist thinking about lyrics and singing good and performing, and not be thinking about, how the music's getting on the tape. So I'd say those are things that I really focus on anyway.
Well, let's start our next set out with a tune that I know you know well, by Andrew Jones and SpiritHouse, called El Sapel Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
El